Okay, we're about ready to start, everyone, I think. Wait for the... roll on and everybody's audios are off. Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the regular meeting of council for December 7th. Look to council any conflicts in today's agenda. If not, motion to adopt the agenda, please. Thank you, Councillor Todd. That would be okay. And second, not me. Don't worry. Don't you worry. It's not me. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the second. All in favor of adoption? Carried. We'll go to, so as far as the agenda, a couple of changes. There will be no delegation from the SDBA chamber at all tonight. They've asked to reschedule for early January. And I believe that the first delegation is from the recently renamed Sechelt Association of the Unhoused, and Mr. Sean Hill. My right will be joining us. So, if you'd care to come up and take a seat at the table, look forward to hearing from you. And I think you know the drill about press the button for the microphone. I heard that. Great. Whoops. All right. Okay. Yeah, there. I think, and you know the procedures, you have 10 minutes, and if council has any questions, we'll be happy to raise them after you're done. Very good. Thank you.
I'm nervous it'd be two minutes, but we'll see. Thank you. We're all good?
Great. Very good.
Thank you. Well, I'm Sean Hill. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to address you this evening. My name is Sean Hill, and I'll be speaking on behalf of the delegation today. We are a community of unhoused folks who live in and around Sechelt. Many of us are currently staying at the shelter on Wharf Avenue, including myself. Some of us are still in what remains of the encampment on High Tide. We are here tonight to introduce ourselves and to extend an olive branch. We believe that communication is the key to any healthy relationship, and we're hoping that this is the first of many successful dialogues between our community and City Hall. Firstly, we'd like to dispel one of the most common myths about our community. We are not out-of-towners who were imported here from downtown East Side. Many of us are long-time residents who were either born here and raised or have called Sunshine Coast home for the majority of their lives, many years.
Just to take you down and talk from your heart while you're listening.
Yep, thank you. Please carry on. Thanks, great.
Can you please not do that?
That's okay. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
I apologize.
Please, no, that's fine, Sean. Carry on. Thanks.
Thank you. I didn't memorize it. At our most recent meeting, we asked for a show of hands to illustrate how many of us are from the coast, and 3/4 of the attendees raised their hands. I myself have lived here for 25 years. Like many of you, I found what I was looking for on the coast. Homelessness is not exclusive to big cities. It also exists here, whether we want to believe that or not. We acknowledge that there are safety concerns pertaining to the way in which we sometimes conduct ourselves, and admit that we can do a better job of holding one another accountable. It shouldn't fall to anyone else to police us. We ought to be able to govern ourselves. We believe it's fundamentally important to bridge the gulf of misunderstanding between our two communities. Going forward, our delegation is hoping to sit down with council to discuss ways in which we can come to a common understanding and begin to work together. A good talk will go a long way toward finding commonalities instead of focusing on differences. We're committed, dedicated, and passionate residents of the Sunshine Coast, and love it just as much as you do. We want to work together to make a safer and more prosperous place. And while our stories may be different, the common thread we share is that we all find ourselves on the coast. Together, we can make it a safe and loving place for everyone. We try. Thank you for your time.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming, and your courage in speaking about your own experiences. So thank you. And from the heart.
Thank you. Thank you.
Council, do you have any questions for Mr. Hill? Councillor Shepherd, please. Your microphone, please.
Sorry, you mentioned sort of numbers of people between the shelter and the encampment. What are the sort of total numbers that you were?
We're looking at something like the shelter itself now with the ground floor level at not at capacity but nearly, and upstairs at capacity. It's, I believe we have as many or more people in that small area as they do in all of the building high tide. You know, much more spread out over there. But you know, I don't know. It just seems, it's funny that shelter is working finally. It seems to catch a groove in its own groove, and people in the staff are jiving. And
50 people in total.
Well, no. Also, I wouldn't consider. Thank you. I don't usually asking you anything. Sorry.
Yeah.
This is what I'm talking. I think that you can't consider the people that live in high tide apartment building housed either, because they're involved in a program. That's not. They don't rent a house. They don't rent an apartment. They have no rules and rights under the. I mean, the rules and rights that they would have under the Tenancy Act are against. They're out the window. It's a program, and they were supposed to be honest, they're supposed to involve more programming to help program them. I guess to be more, you know, to their needs, to their specific needs for societal, you know, adaptation.
Mm-hmm.
Listen.
Yeah. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Inkster.
I don't. Okay. This is driving me nuts.
Yeah. No, you, Sean. You're here to talk to us, so please. No, please do. Councillor Inkster, please.
Sean, you're probably aware of the information that's in the paper, either articles
mm-hmm.
and or letters to the editor,
mm-hmm.
and or some of the information that's available if you look at social media.
Of course.
And some of it's not complimentary and is negative. And I just wanted to ask you, obviously your group's aware of it and you're aware of it. It might be one of the reasons why you've come and spoke to us, so come to speak to us. So I'm wondering, you've admitted that you're aware of it, so if you want to just quickly...
Yeah, well, I think that each and every instance has a valid jumping off point, and I don't think anyone's lying when they say that certain things have happened. But things can be blown out of proportion so easily. One so-called attack on, I mean, and don't get me wrong, that is not to be denied or belittled. An incident against a senior citizen in any case, anywhere in society is baloney and should be scrutinized, clearly scrutinized and taken into account. But that's the case. That was a one-time off. That was a one-off, and heaven forbid it ever happens again. But we would. I'll tell you right now, just like everyone, all communities police themselves, or tend to. And I mean, I lived in Half Moon Bay for 15 years. You know that, right? Build a house with, and if somebody of your neighbors was driving drunk on the road, or anything else against the sort of moral codes or bylaw codes of the three, we would go over there and talk to them, right? So that's what should have happened that maybe didn't in that case, but normally speaking, they would be taking. So anyway, I just think that account for account, if we were to talk about them, if you want to point them and specify, we could go and get the information that you would need. But there's no denying that certain things have happened, and I wouldn't try to. So some, you know, some lesser and some more shitty.
Great, thank you, Councillor McLaughlin.
I was just wondering, Sean, if you could tell me what you have as a vision for how you would like to see things, deal with this.
Well, this is personal. Personally, I had an idea. So initially, it would probably have to stay Tent City. I stayed for a summer and a bit. I was going back and forth. I was clean and sober for a long time, and I drank a lot of beer and stuff like that, but not doing hard drugs, until 4 or 5 years ago when I had knee surgery and I started taking some pills, and I slipped back into my old ways as a kid. So I have seen these places in the city, and none of them work. In the end, they don't work. So it can't be long, and they all say that, but no, it has to be a very short-lived event of a tent city. But with a common goal to get out of that into something just more sturdy. I had the idea. Okay, so one of the local builders, Unger, the elder, he was telling me one time, I don't know the guy very well, but he was explaining that he was going to buy an acreage up in out Stevens Way, wherever, Secret Cove, 20 acre lots, and put initially pour a slab for a trailer, pour a slab for a shed, and on the shed you would put because you have those services, right, water and power. So the services in this case would be the sun, especially up there, you're a little bit up, and so you bank that energy. I would suggest if we were to get some land inexpensively from the city, perhaps Crown Land or whatever, or wherever, some place to go, you do just a slab for the 4x4 by 8. Like let's say everybody gets a small place with a thing on top. They put a tent underneath, a cooked place, whatever they want, a car. But on top, we have to invest in it and put the solar things. And then, of course, after you bank up a certain amount of electricity, you can sell it back to hydro. And that's something they buy quite willingly, I think. And so that's that. Initially, if you can pop those up there quite quickly, you could start paying back the debt.
Thank you. Thanks. All right, Councillor Bell.
Sean, thank you so much for coming tonight, and again for being so honest and sincere about what's going on for you. It sounds like you have a vision, or you want to tell a different story about what's going on, and you want that to change in what we're hearing and what the community is hearing. It's not just what we're hearing, it's what the community is hearing. And certainly the community is hearing that, there's a fear now around their safety. And for you to be here tonight and want to work towards a solution I think is a tremendous start. So thank you for doing that, and thank you for coming and representing for all of you for being here. So what I'm hearing is that you feel that having a place for the group of you to be would be a start. And first let me back up a little bit. What do you think has changed, Sean? Why has there been, there's more people? Is this what's happening now?
I think there is more people, but whether it's more people that have just learned I honestly don't think, when we did take the toll the other day, everyone in that room, we had 30 people in the room when we took the vote for who was going to speak and what ideas we all had, and we took our turns talking. And so I knew every one of them, and I know that most of them outdate me and I've been here 25 years, since I was 25, I was in the Woodland West Kootenays, coming from Ontario, and these guys, and I had friends here, and we come every summer. They live in Texada, and then they're here, I loved it. I figured if I was ever any place other than Rossland, I'd come here. And sure enough, met this girl, so I decided to stay. And I've loved it more and more each day. And I forgot the point. What's the point? I'm sorry, I lost track of it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this is a tough environment.
It is.
Yeah, but
and you have lots to say.
No,
That's okay.
Yeah.
Please refresh me.
So basically, what you were saying is when you were talking about when Diane asked you about your vision, one of the things you talked about was a space, if you like, for your. Okay, so I'm just wondering if tonight do you have a request?
Yes, they do. Well, you know what? We don't actually. Today, I think it's more about you seeing us, and just because I'm who I am, any number of us could have done this, including what's her name over there, doing it for me on the sideline. She'll be up here next week or the week after or whenever. I'm sure, and many of us can do it quite well. I was just, they voted for me to do it, and I was happy to do it. I'm pleased to, because I have been, as I say, I went to treatment, and I got kicked out of treatment because I'm a jerk, and then, you know, I only went for the wrong reasons, for my girlfriend or whatever, so I kept going back, and every time I go back, I feel too embarrassed to come home. So I'd stay in the city, and I'd stay in the city with no, you know, just running the streets until it got too cold or whatever, and then, but these 10 cities I found, they were quite beautiful in the beginning sometimes. Strathcona Park was gorgeous. You know, if you guys know, that's a beautiful park. And then by the end, it was just awful.
Right.
You know, awful. So anyway, yeah. So but tonight, no. I think that we're just here to say, hey, we're here, and we're not a bunch of people from the East Van. 30 years ago, they offered me, when I first moved to Vancouver, I was on welfare in Vancouver for a couple of months before I got a job as Fats on Commercial, and Fettuccine's it was called, and very fast from Joe's, and. They were asking us then if we wanted to go to Sunshine Coast or wherever then, and I still don't see. I mean, I came up here, but it wasn't because of that. I went through those 5 years in the food news first, went to college and stuff out there, and was bartending and skiing, and really just enjoying the lifestyle that I wanted and found here. So,
Thanks. Sean, if I may, thank you. We have a very full agenda, so I think what you've done is you've put a face to some of the uncertainties and the some fear.
Yeah.
As you may know, and for everybody in the gallery, we had the formative meeting for the Community Safety Task Force. And I want you to know that when we talk about that, that's safety for everybody, including you.
Understood.
So thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, great, thanks.
Okay.
And perfect. Great. Okay. Great. Don't worry about that, Sean. Great. Thank you. Yeah, stay safe. Council, we'll get to some of our procedural items. We've got some minutes of previous meetings. If I could, I guess we'll reference the November 9th council meeting, council to closed meeting. Could I have a motion and seconded for adoption? Councillor Bell, thank you. I would note that we need a correction on page 9 because I think the mayor's got a different name now. So with that amendment, all in favor of adoption? Carried. The meeting of regular council of November 16th. Got before us maybe before we get into, is there any errors, omissions? I can certainly jump in. Reference to the community investment program, the council appointment, we will have that for the next council meeting. Other than that, I think, Councillor McLaughlin, please.
I was just wondering, on page 15 under 10.1 Green Court Covenant, just to confirm that it says that council authorized staff to amend covenant, CA, et cetera, to change the minimum number of units under section 22(1)B it says from 100 to 94. And I was just wondering if that was from 104 to 94. Because originally it was 104.
But I believe the original covenant was for at least 100. I'm looking, Ms. Frank. Were you?
Sorry, Your Worship, could you please repeat the question?
The question is on page 15, I believe. The reference to Green Court, was the original covenant for 100 or 104?
The original covenant was 100, and it was here to put it to 94, to amend it to 94.
Okay. Thank you. So I think the plan was to build 104, but our covenant was for at least 100. Okay, thank you. That's
okay.
Great. The other item I noticed in my notes, top middle point, just above point 7 on page 13, the task force will report back to council by January 31st, is what we'd referenced. What I'm reading says January 1st. So just a little typo. Anything else, council? The exciting stuff. Okay, if not, no. Okay, all in favor as amended? Carried. We have the meeting minutes from the Advisory Planning Commission of November 1st. Motion to adopt, or maybe any corrections first? Councillor McLaughlin, were you in attendance?
No, but
Okay.
I just wondered, for the minutes here, are we gonna have a chance to review these items, later? Or can we discuss them at this point?
You can seek to clarify items that are, if they're an error or, amendments, but you wouldn't normally be discussing something from a council meeting.
Mm-hmm.
From a committee of the whole, we will be, endorsing them, and at that point, we could be considering amendments for a committee of the whole.
But no discussion, in general, of
No,
even
that would normally
proceeding?
come in a new agenda item, because these are just minutes of the meeting.
Mm. Okay.
Okay, thank you. So council, APC minutes of November 1st, I would be remiss if I didn't, speak up on behalf of Mr. Croizier's, name spelling as one of the people present. He has 2 I's in his name. Ken, you owe me one. Anything else, folks? Councillor Toth, move, thank you. Yeah. Second, Councillor Bell, all in favor of receipt? Carried. The committee of the whole meeting from November 9th, starting on, help me, this computer's running slower, or maybe I am. Thank you. There. Anything, council? If not, a motion to receive and endorse. All in favor? Oh, sorry, I got a seconder. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, the minutes of our committee of the whole from November 23rd. The motion, we can start with the motion to receive. I know there's a couple of items to be considered, a motion and a second for receipt. All right, discussion. Councillor Inkster, were you wanting to comment?
You mentioned there were 2 items.
Yes.
To discuss.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering what 2 items those were as
I was front-running what I understood you were going to bring up, but I can say that the meeting of the budget meetings have, as some, I think all of council know, but for the public have been moved from the dates in the minutes to December 19th and January 4th and 11th. So that's for not an amendment, but for some information for the public.
I think that when you're talking, do you speak closer to your microphone? So you're speaking like that.
Okay, we'll try.
So the item that I thought that I think you were referencing is the item on page 32, recommendation number 4. I just wanted to talk about that some more before it moves forward and becomes, I guess, status quo, as was mentioned before, in order to discuss whether that is something we should continue to proceed with.
So that item is when we're going to meet?
Yes.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
Did you have something you want to comment on?
Well, I think that there was a number of issues presented in the report that was put forward, and also, too, that there was some reasons why we should stay where we were, and I just wanted to speak to a couple of them. One was that we should stay where we were because it would give us an opportunity to talk to staff on issues. I just wanted to mention that what we will find, I think, as a council, is that the agenda that's presented to us as we move forward will be our own agenda, and we'll know most of the answers that we would ask of staff, as well as the fact that most of the questions we will find as per good governance should be addressed to staff in a public meeting so that staff can hear the question and answer those questions. So that was one of the issues in reference to as to why we would stay. I think the agendas are reviewable over 3 days as presented to us, and I do still stand by the idea that the agendas could potentially come out earlier and there would be enough time for council to review for a Monday council meeting, as well as the fact that I had some challenges with the existing Wednesday schedule. So I just wanted it discussed and put on the floor again with some of the words that I've spoken as to the earlier reasons why we should stick with Wednesday, and as to why moving forward we'll find that those reasons aren't as valid. Thank you.
So, okay, procedurally, I realize I should have sought receipt of all the other items except this one. So
Yes.
maybe we could do that first, and then we'll come back and discuss the points you're raising. So this would be a motion if council is amenable to receive and endorse recommendations, all the recommendations except item 5.3.
Your Worship?
Yes, please.
Your Worship, just procedurally, recommendation number 3 is the original dates of December 13th and 14th, and as you noted, those have been changed. So
Yes.
if you endorse it as is,
Thank you.
but rather you just to amend it, or just right now pass a resolution that they're December 19th, January 4th, and 11th. In essence,
All right.
amend what's there.
So we'll the motion for endorsement is for 1, 2, 5. Was there a 5? No, there wasn't. 1, 2. So we'll endorse and receive 1 and 2. Are you seconding, Councillor?
No,
Just,
I would like to comment on.
One moment.
item
We need a
5.1.
seconder before. So thank you. Yes, Councillor McLaughlin.
I just
For 1 and
didn't
2.
really feel that my comments in terms of why I did not support the short-term rental bylaw implementation came through at all. And I think primarily it pertained to water and the amount of water that short-term rentals use in the summer. And that didn't really come through in the minutes. And so I wanted it to show why I was opposed to the motion. And that's not clear in the minutes.
Okay. Okay, so we'll make a note of that in this meeting under the discussion items around adoption. Councillor, okay.
Your Worship, perhaps just might be somewhat informative moving forward, but in general, I guess I'd just say that the verbal part of the minutes, like anything other than the recommendations or resolutions, are not meant to be a transcript. And actually, we actually kept a lot more verbal in these minutes than we usually would, because it was quite a long debate. But I guess I just want to say that it won't always be a transcription of every comment that was made. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for that. And the other thing, and certainly since I was last here, everything is on YouTube. So if anybody wants to see what we've said, and apparently it'll live forever. It's a little daunting. So, okay, with that, your point is noted, and we'll, in this case, we'll have notes in our minutes of this meeting. Okay, thank you. So could we have a motion to adopt 1 and 2, recommendations 1 and 2. All in favor? Motion to deal with the easy parts first, resolution 4, this is, okay, to amend the recommendation 4 to have the meetings on December 19th, January 4th, and January 11th. No? Yes, that's what I said, recommendation 3. Don't go to YouTube to find out, yeah. Councillor Toth is keeping me on track. So moved, thank you. Second, all in favor of, carried. All right, Councillor Inkster, so your point on recommendation 4 is that you have some issues around Wednesdays, and you are aware of that there might be some challenges in reviewing agendas between the Friday and the Monday. So do you have a recommendation or a resolution, I suppose, that you'd like to propose to test the meeting?
Yeah, I mean, I would prefer to, that I would introduce the motion to, at least for now, go to the Monday proposal as presented by the mayor at that time. There was a number of reasons presented at that time, and there was a number of couple of reasons why we shouldn't look at it, but I think that, as I said, that our agenda will become ours, and we don't need to the number of days that has been suggested. We need to review the agendas. Plus, I think council does know, and those that have followed council proceedings will realize that there is time in the creation of an agenda by decisions made by this council to review the information presented. It won't be new to us. There will be time at the committee of the whole to ask questions of staff. Okay. There will be time as that agenda proceeds and as those issues proceed to council to ask questions of staff. There will be time throughout those numbers of probably 2 months as an issue progresses or moves forward for council members to review the agendas and know what's on the agendas. Okay. I think as a new council, we're finding that some of the items are new to us, but very soon those items will be our items, as well as the issues that you presented.
And so I should get a seconder before we continue this conversation.
Yeah.
Yes.
When there's a holiday. Okay.
So your motion is for 1 or for 2?
Well, that's, I would like us to look at Monday and then Tuesday if it is, in fact, if council believes, because I don't mind a friendly suggestion. If council believes that we should continue with the business of council, hearing that tonight, then I would,
Excuse me, Pam, we're here to talk to each other. We'll try to do that, but please don't interrupt the discussion. Thank you.
I would say that option 2 with Tuesday to continue the business of council is an option that I would be comfortable with. Okay. If, in fact, we have holiday Mondays, which there are 3 or 4. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I'll introduce that then.
Okay, for option 2 then, essentially. All right, thank you. Is there a seconder? Well, I will second it because I'd like this discussion. I'm ambivalent to which day, but I am interested in efficiencies for staff. I think I'm concerned that our discussion last time tended to be focused on what was going to work for us individually or wouldn't work for us. So I would draw your reference to what was in the report about the benefits that would happen for the staff and for some members of council because of the SCRD. You might be interested as well to know that Burnaby, Burnaby, Abbotsford, and Campbell River staff identified meets on Mondays, and they produce their agendas on Fridays. I did check that. So, anyways, everybody's heads are down. Any other discussions?
Well,
Councillor McLaughlin, please.
yeah, I did phone Abbotsford and a couple of the other municipalities mentioned, and I think Abbotsford in particular said that they do put their agendas out earlier than that. They put them out like Wednesday, maybe Thursday. And they also pointed out that it's important that the public has a chance to review the agendas as well. So, and plus for me, I mean, I still work, and to have to review the agendas on the weekend and review issues, which I think are very important, and consult with people about things. At the same time, it's important for me to have that extra time.
Okay, thank you. The Abbotsford website does say they release their agendas on Fridays, so that is their policy. Yes, Councillor Rowe.
Just to Councillor Inkster's faith, and I'll speak for myself personally, that things get easier over the 4 years or more familiar. There's always new things. It's not like we receive all the new stuff at the beginning of the 4 years and so we get used to it. There's always
new challenges and issues that come up over the term, I do want that ability to ask questions of staff. Now, all that to say, good governance, et cetera, having your questions answered in public, I always re-ask the question in a public meeting. But giving staff the heads up, hey, I'm going to want to know about this, actually allows them to come to the table finding out the information if it's something that they need to look at. So I still want the ability and time to do that without necessarily being trapped into that having to happen on Saturday and Sunday, whatever that looks like.
Thanks, Councillor Rowe. Councillor Toth.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I agree with Councillor Rowe. In 4 years, you know, even near the end of 4 years, you still have questions, and it's not fair to staff to play gotcha with them if something comes up that you don't know the answer to or you don't understand. For sure, ask it in the meeting, as I think we were quite good at doing all through the last term. I think publishing the agendas on Friday with the meetings on Monday, that short turnaround diminishes transparency, not only to all of us, but to the members of the public as well. If you've got a controversial issue coming up or a neighborhood has a controversial issue coming up, Friday to Monday is really short for a community to get together to pay attention to the issues that might matter. So I would be supportive of this if we amended the appropriate bylaw to move the agenda publishing date back to Wednesday so that it would actually be fixed. But, you know, hoping that we might get the agendas out early, I don't think is good enough for our public. Thank you.
Thank you. So you posed an amendment, but are you making it or you're just giving us a flavor?
I'm not sure yet. I wanted to see if there were other comments from council. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Councillor Bell.
Supporting what Alton said, I think I just want to acknowledge both the time for the staff as well as our community, because we have a very engaged community, and they are very savvy in terms of, you know, what they know. I mean, they're learning with us, but I want to give them the opportunity to be able to have the time to go through the agenda and to think it through so that they too can come informed with their questions.
Thanks, Councillor Bell. Councillor Shepherd.
So could we put Councillor Toth's question to staff to see if the agendas could be brought out earlier?
I have had that conversation. I'm looking through you because our CAO is hiding behind your Councillor.
Agendas can be prepared to be published on any day of the week that you care to have them published. We will just back up our input days to meet that date.
Okay. Does that help you with your potential commentary, Councillor Toth? No, not yet. Okay. Councillor Shepherd.
Sorry, could I raise one other issue? I was attending the library monthly meeting last week, and they were very concerned about the change in date because they have to reprogram their programs that take place in this room. So if we could give them as much notice as possible if there is going to be a change.
Yep.
Thanks.
And I believe their meetings end at 6 o'clock on Mondays. Yep. Okay. Hearing no amendments or anything, Councillor Inkster.
So, as has been indicated by the discussion at the council table, a number of things could change over some time. The meeting schedule could change with the library. They may be able to, over some time, change things to Wednesday because there's now Wednesday as a free day, and it may work for others. Just Monday is status quo for them, Wednesday was status quo for us. We're looking, change can be good. In terms of the agenda, it has been presented that, and I've mentioned this to some council members over the last few weeks, that as things change and if there is some lead time, and there will be lead time with this, that everything backs up. And it doesn't get backed up in the negative sense. It just backs up in the sense that agendas, items over a number of probably 6 weeks start to slowly come out a little bit earlier. And then the decisions are made on a Monday, confirmed on a Monday. That then gives them that much more time to get the agendas ready for the next Monday. So things will slowly, within 6 weeks, back up. As I said earlier, with the information that's presented to council by the community and or questions from the community and or concerns from the community on an issue, the way our system works democratically is if we make decisions and we put in bylaws, those don't happen within 3 days. We bring in bylaws and make decisions over a number of months, and that gives the public opportunity to talk to council and for council to ask the questions of staff. We will get hit with a number of different issues over the next few years, I get that. But the reactions we have to them, the solutions we have to them, because we're in a democracy, will take a number of meetings for us to discuss and come up with a solution. And those meetings will give the community and council, whether it's on a Monday or a Wednesday, an opportunity to fully discuss those issues.
Great. You do remind me of one thing that I know Monday or potentially Tuesday meetings works for, and I'm looking at our Fifth Estate representative here today, that it would allow staff to get statutory notices. That was in the report within the same week. But so I'd forgotten about that. Okay, I'm looking, still no?
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to vote against this, but if it does pass, I'll bring forward a recommendation or resolution that we change the publishing date of agendas.
Okay. Who's that? For those on Zoom, a phone is ringing, so. Okay, you ready for the question, Council? The motion is to go to Mondays, option 2 of the original report, essentially Mondays with Tuesdays when a Monday is a stat holiday. Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Motion fails. Okay. Okay, great. Okay, we will carry on to item 8.1 and you again.
That motion failed, but we still have to actually deal with recommendation 4.
Oh, man. So.
Thank you.
Okay. Make that motion.
I will move that we adopt recommendation 4 as presented.
Okay. Seconder? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Yep. Now, if that's all right, we'll go to item 8.1. So we have before us the public sewer amendment bylaw, et cetera, et cetera. And a presentation with fog. See that on my screen. Okay, so Mr. Nyhuis, you're going to present a short summary of a fascinating subject?
Thank you, Your Worship. Mr. Dillon and I will co-present. Mr. Dillon will start. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Worship. Today we'll be presenting on changes to the public sewer bylaw to address fats, oils, and grease. So just a brief description of what that is. Fats, oils, and grease are commonly known by the acronym as FOG, and they're just basically when you, cook bacon and put it down the drain, it all ends up in our sewer and gums things up. So this is to address that. So the problem with that is that the accumulation of fog in our system is responsible for at least 80% of the maintenance required on our sewers. And that's true for many other municipalities throughout British Columbia. It's also anticipated that the cost to remove fog from the system for Sechelt was approximately $66,000 in 2022. So this matter goes to the operational costs of our sewer system, as well as the long-term longevity of our assets and maintaining those. Okay. So here's the visuals. They're always helpful, and this is an extreme case of what that could look like. So this is from the city of Niagara Falls sewer system. You see totally gummed up. I don't know if that one was downstream of one of the casino buffets, but you can see what it looks like at the end of the day. So next slide, please. So I just wanted to bring that example. We're not as bad as Niagara Falls yet, but we are not headed in the right direction, and we do have some input of grease into our system. So this is what our pipes should look like: nice and clean. The sewers are flowing fine, and this is a camera inspection video from one of our typical pipes where you see the accumulation of fog. Slide. So I think some of the big offenders of this are from households where people pour grease down the sink. Also, in-sink disposal systems such as carburetors do create an issue because they don't fully disintegrate the waste as it goes down through our pipes. And so that downstream accumulates as sludge and creates an issue with our sewer system. We do have some issues with some stuff downstream where folks have complained about drains draining out slowly, and also backflows of sewer. We've had to address a few issues and repair those because of some grease that was downstream, and we think it was from some of the local food vendors in town. So here's a photo here of you can see that the fog is accumulating in the Watermark lift station. It's floating on the surface, so this creates a big problem for all the pumps and all the piping downstream. So it's an ongoing maintenance concern for our crews, and by reducing the amount that goes in, it should cut down on the amount of call-outs and maintenance required. And so it's an ongoing problem, and as I said before, this is resulting in about $66,000 in operational costs a year. And so through being able to bring in some amendments to the bylaw that will allow for us to go into restaurants or address those when we've seen observationally some issues with our flows, will greatly assist in us trying to reduce this operational cost.
The proposed bylaw is a reactive bylaw in which businesses would only be contacted by the district staff when it was noted that fog in excess of the limits of the bylaw were detected in the laterals serving that business. So it's not going to be like Metro Vancouver, where they proactively go out and target businesses that they suspect are contributing excessive amounts of fats, oils, and grease into the system. We're just going to deal with the ones that we become aware of, rather than proactively going after businesses. The plumbing code sets out the general requirements for when a grease interceptor is required, but to give specific requirements for the sizing and installation of them in the body of the code. Here we can see an example of a Zurn grease interceptor with a built-in sampling port, and you can see the sampling port to that brass plug on the outlet there. That's where you could actually go in and measure the wastewater for the content of fats, oils, and grease per liter. And the bylaw is going to establish a limit of maximum 300 milligrams of fats, oils, and grease per liter of wastewater. And here's a cross-section of what the grease interceptor actually looks like. You can see how it diverts the lighter ends, the fats, oils, and grease, up to a collection point and allows the clear waste to pass underneath the baffle and out of the grease interceptor.
Mr. Nyhus, can I interrupt? About how much do these cost? Like if a restaurant was to put one of these in?
That's a good question. For a 50-gallon grease interceptor, the cost to purchase it would be about $600 to $700.
Right.
And where you could put these in is in place of the P-trap underneath the equipment, which the grease interceptor is meant to serve.
Mm-hmm.
So in essence, you replace the P-trap, or what Mike Holmes would call the gooseneck, and you install the grease interceptor at that point.
So it's not a big burden on any particular restaurant?
Depending how much equipment they have that actually is producing the fats, oils, and grease, typically what you see in a small restaurant is a pot sink where they wash the cooking utensils and that sort of thing, and perhaps a dishwasher where they would put everything else to sanitize it and clean it to the standards set by the health authority. So that would be 2 grease interceptors.
Okay, thank you. Sorry to... Just thought that would be helpful to put an order of magnitude on. Please carry on.
As for any alteration to the plumbing system in the district, a plumbing permit must be issued to a licensed plumbing contractor for the work. Records must be available to district staff upon request. As part of the initiative of this bylaw, staff will create a uniform log to be provided to the owners and operators of food sector establishments. And that log would look something like this, where you would have a record of maintenance of grease interceptors that staff could monitor upon request. And it's also a good way for restaurants to be able to schedule maintenance as required. Mm-hmm. And cleaning out of the grease interceptors could be as simple as asking one of the employees to remove the lid and simply scoop out the congealed grease to dispose of as solid waste. Or you could, for larger circumstances where you have a large restaurant and perhaps a very large grease interceptor, there are several businesses that will come around and clean it out much in the same way as they would clean out septic tanks. And I understand from one of those businesses, the fee for that is between $175 and $250.
Okay,
and here's,
I think we'll let Mr. Nyhus finish, and then I should not have interrupted him.
Here's an example of a device that's used to measure fog in the wastewater. These devices cost anywhere from between $500 to $1,500. And fog does continue to be a problem for the district. When I joined the district in February of 2021, one of the very first things I was asked by the operations staff is if I had any bright ideas on how to deal with fog in the public sewer system. And subsequent to that, Mr. Dillon and I are here before you.
There's a few puns that come to mind, but we'll leave those for later. Councillor McLaughlin, please.
I was just wondering if there's any regulations or any way you could follow up with commercial businesses that have deep fryers. Well, I would imagine that they might be the ones that might have the most grease to deal with.
They are actually, and being a plumber and gas fitter by trade, I'm quite familiar with the commercial establishments. And deep fryers, you do cycle the grease out, and there is a drain on them by which you capture it and dispose. At that point, you would hopefully dispose of it in the correct manner and not simply dump it down the sanitary drainage system. But it does happen.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Shepherd? Oh, maybe we can turn off the screen share if we turn, yes, whoever's doing the screen share.
Just a quick question about the reactive approach. I mean, we don't have that many restaurants in town. Does the town visit restaurants on a regular basis just to see, A, if they have appropriate equipment, B, if people can show records of it being serviced?
Councillor, the Mayor, at this point, no. But we do have an opportunity from time to time when we do video camera inspections to look into the laterals. And it's much the same as the slide that Mr. Dillon, had described to you with regards to the grease caking the laterals of sewer lines. It's fairly obvious at that point there are excessive amounts of fats, oils, and grease.
Yeah, if I may, through your worship, just to add to that, some larger municipalities do have programs where they go in and will look at these proactively. Given our resources that we have here in terms of staff capability, we're leaving this as a kind of an observational, complaint-driven process, which, given the number of restaurants, is something that we can handle within our resource capabilities. So, maybe one day in the future when we're a larger municipality, but at this time, we don't have the folks for that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, great. Councillor Toth, please.
Thank you, Chair. I imagine that the restaurants are the worst contributors to the problem, but homes aren't immune either. Is there an opportunity for us to increase our education, either through Facebook or, targeting our messaging when we send out the tax notices? I know that flushable wipes were something that we did target at one point through social media, so hopefully that campaign helped. Thank you.
If I may, through your worship, we are in the works to do some education. We've come up with some novel ideas on how we can do that. Some municipalities have given out jars that say, put your bacon grease here instead of down the drain. So there are creative ways to do that. I have in attendance tonight our manager of wastewater, Christine Miller. If you want to add anything about the education efforts we've done to date, you're more than welcome to add something.
Thank you. Director Dillon? Oh, excuse me. Well, as you said, we're just in the works right now of putting together some more documentation. We've been doing a lot of research and compiling of data, and one of the initiatives that's part of this presentation is to educate. That's the biggest part, really, is to educate our community on the cost and the correct way to deal with fat, oils, and grease.
Mm-hmm. Great. Okay, thank you. Councillor Inkster?
Yeah, in reference to Councillor Toth's residential, get a dog. They're really helpful. But what I was also going to mention is if we go way back in our time machines, Councillor Whistler would have said his two complaints were grease in our sewer system and sewer rates. So he was talking about this up until he wasn't coming to meetings about grease problems, and probably with the numbers of hookups to our system increasing, the large pipe end or the picture that was shown there would grow with the number of fogs in there, just by the numbers of hookups. Right. Because when Councillor Whistler was talking about, I think there was probably 5 to 10 food outlets connected to our system, and I'm sure it's quite a bit more than that then. So this has been an issue over the last 20 to 40 years.
Thanks. Councillor Bell? Okay,
Thank you. I was just wondering if there's any place or any way that we could collect the grease and that somebody might be able to turn it into something useful. I mean, I keep my bacon grease, it makes great cookies, and I know for generations, this is a precious resource. And just in terms of environmentally, I know people used to collect vegetable oil and use it for running cars, even though they might smell like French fries going by. But I just wondered if there's any potential for that.
I recall in a previous jurisdiction, a business that went collecting grease from food sector establishments to make biodiesel. And my father, when he was this time of year going down to the United States, he often complained how the semi-truck in front of him smelled like French fries. So I think there are opportunities to reuse collected grease. Specifically, I'm not sure what those opportunities are right now on the Sunshine Coast. I like to think that if there is an opportunity, somebody will take it up.
Thanks. Councillor Bell?
So, yeah, I want to really support the education process because, quite frankly, I'm as a member of the community, I was really quite staggered by the cost and had no idea that was the impact of sometimes doing innate things, which you think you just do something, you don't think about it. So the education process is really great, and certainly attach that number to it.
Great.
Okay. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. All right, Councillor Toth.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm ready to move recommendations 1 and 2 on page 34 as presented.
Thank you. Took the words out of my mouth. Second, Councillor Rowe. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried. And so we can then go to the actual bylaw, which is on page, I gotta, 35, that's 39, that's better. So this is before us for 3 readings tonight. If you're so inclined, motion to give first reading to this bylaw. Councillor Shepherd, second, Councillor Toth. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Second reading, Councillor Rowe and Councillor Bell moved and seconded. All in favor? Carried. And anybody else want to join in the move and second for third reading? Thank you, Councillor Inkster. Councillor Rowe, second. All in favor? Carried. Corporate Officer, Ms. Frank. Yes, please.
Your Worship, a procedural matter, and our apologies for bringing this back, but staff note that under item 7.3, recommendation 4, which was the council meeting schedule for next year, it was put forward, a motion was put forward that was defeated, but council did not then pass a motion as to what to do with the schedule, and council's procedure bylaw says that we will do that in December.
We ratified the decision of the recommendation of COW.
The recommendation 4 as is? Okay.
Yes.
Our apologies. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, council, we'll go to item 8.2. What didn't we do? Oh, man. Well, look at that. 8.1C. Go ahead. So this is before us as well for 3 readings. All in motion second for first reading. All in favor? Carried. Motion for second reading. Councillor Shepherd and Councillor Bell. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And a motion for third reading, please. Councillor Rowe and second, Councillor Bell. Yeah. All in favor of third reading? Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. Now, with Councillor Toth's indulgence, we'll go to page 42 and the District of Sechelt fees and charges bylaw. For 3 readings, if it suits you. This is all about Hackett Park. So, is there anybody? Oh, hello, Mr. Douglas, hiding over there.
If I may, Your Worship,
please.
I can brief on the report. So the purpose of this report is to bring forward proposed rental rates for the District of Sechelt Hackett Park concession stand and outdoor stage. And so we are looking for 3 readings tonight. All of our facilities that we rent out have fees and charges attached to them in our fees and charges bylaw. This is a new facility for us. It was completed in July of 2022. And we have had several events there over the summer. And we would like to put fees to it. And at the bottom of the report, you can see that we have a host of different fees that we considered. But in the end, we just went with 3 of the fees structures there, not all 4, in the bylaw. And, when somebody rents a facility from us, it's there's staff time for every rental. And so that's really the reason that we dropped let's say the last or the free public event rate of 0. Because once you book it, it gets put into our booking software. We meet people for a key. There's lots of activity that goes on behind the scenes. So the bylaw includes fees for private, commercial or ticketed event, and then nonprofit or community events would be under the lowest fees there.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Douglas. Could I clarify then, for something like this, what's the expected revenue over the course of the year in a ballpark?
Not sure we have a high expected revenue here. There are limited events. Some of them we host ourselves, and there are some private events that go on. We also have some classes that are held there periodically. But I would say, overall revenues are probably under $2,500 for the year.
So this is more a way of recovering a bit of staff costs than anything?
Correct.
Great. Okay, very good. Council, could I have a motion before we have discussion? Motion before we need a motion, and then we can discuss it. So, and I'd entertain a motion for all 3. See, et cetera. Moved and seconded. Councillor McLaughlin.
As you know, I live in the village, and I'm just finding over the summers that there are more things being booked, and there's a lot more noise, actually, coming from various venues in the summer. And you go out and you're not really sure who's there or what exactly is going on. I remember we walked to see what music was once, and it was a private wedding. And so I almost feel in some ways that with this park going in there with all these facilities, it was meant to be a community facility, but in some ways the parks are being privatized because we're putting prices on things are being scheduled, and there's getting to be a bit of a feeling that they're not so much community facilities. For instance, can a community group use it, book it, and use it for free? Can a school group come in and book it and use it for free? If people just want to sit on the benches, can they do that? Can they use the washroom? And it's almost seeming like it's being privatized in many ways, and when there's so many fees involved. So I have a concern about that, and I think maybe some discussion needs to be had there before this is totally approved. And some decibel levels should be set. I guess it's a noise bylaw, but when people rent a place, they think, wow, we rented it. We can make as much noise as we like. And one time, we went to one place where there was music downtown. It was 100 decibels right outside their door. So, and then the hours of something's rented.
So we do, of course, have a noise bylaw.
Yeah, I think it would have to be tightened up because now it's very broad.
So that would be a matter you could bring to a future council meeting.
But the cost issue too. I think there should be some time put aside or allow social groups to use it for free. School groups especially. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Inkster, please.
Sorry, it's just a clarification. In the existing noise bylaw, there is no decibel level set.
Councillor Inkster?
I always wondered when the proposal was initially came forward to add a better public space at Hackett Park where you would place it, because the original stage is on the field, which caused a lot of problems in the neighborhood. So hopefully going forward, we'll see how the hill deals with the sound that may progress up into the residences that are more populated further up, because that's where the stage faces. I was wondering, though, in terms of the concerns and or suggestions presented by Councillor McLaughlin, that there are opportunities that I hope the district publicizes and or presents to the public for the public to ask for us, in some cases, to waive fees. We always have those opportunities to allow particular groups of a not-for-profit or a public engagement opportunity to do that. So I hope that's something that we acknowledge and or present to the public as part of a bylaw where we're yet adding more fees to some of our publicly available services. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay.
Just to comment on that also, I was just wondering if somebody does privately rent out that venue, what are the limits on the use of that area? Will there be fencing or, you know, it's the whole park essentially. So I think we need to think about how, if somebody does rent it out for a fee, how is that demarcated as well? Because right now it's the park.
No, I read this bylaws, it's the stage. So,
well, it could be the stage, it could be the seating, it could be the area where food is prepared, the concession.
No, that's a separate item. We'd have to rent that as well.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. And then also, somebody might want to just rent the concession for
Indeed,
something.
that's
but
why
they can't do that.
it's in here separately.
Yeah, they can't do it, just the concession.
Yes, they can. If you look at the
Offer to rent
bottom of
junction with the
47.
special event permit.
Bottom of 47.
Concession is not available as a standalone
Right.
commercial
I
operation.
see what you're saying. Right. Okay.
Thank
Very
you.
good. Yep. Director Douglas?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment that, the concession can be rented. What we're not looking for there is a monthly rental. Like, that's not what we're trying to do here. So if there's an event going on, the event host will have first right to rent the concession with the event. And then if they don't take it, then somebody else can rent it for the event.
So the Coasters Car Club could rent the park?
Or, yes.
And then the Lions Club could rent the concession?
Correct.
Thank you.
And, but it's not intended to somebody be there permanently for the summer.
Right.
That's not what is included here. Just another comment that all our facilities have minimum rents to them. None of them are at zero.
Yeah. And that would be my comment about waiving fees. There's still cost to us, so we are incurring costs to administer this. Okay. Councillor Toff.
Thank you. Just in conjunction, I was a little disappointed to see the nonprofit free public event activity rate drop off. But when we're talking about something like the schools or anything that's a bigger organization, the regional district does have the joint use agreement between SD 46 and the regional district for facility use. And so there is an opportunity there for schools to use SCRD facilities and vice versa. And the District of Sechelt and the Town of Gibsons actually do participate in that service. So I think it's something to follow up with offline, but I just wanted to flag it that perhaps this is something that could be a facility that we offer up as part of the joint use program. So just something for future consideration. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks. Okay, Council, I think we have the vote on the report first. And it's moved and seconded. You ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? Councillor McLaughlin opposed.
Is that the report with the fees or just the report?
The report, right, the staff report. The staff report. So, with the recommendation to proceed with 3 readings. So, you're still opposed? Councillor McLaughlin?
I'm opposed.
Okay, thank you. Okay, then, if Councillor Toth will make sure I stay on track, we go to page 47 for the bylaw, and this is before us for 3 readings today. What is your wish? Motion for first reading, second. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Councillor McLaughlin's opposed. Motion for second reading. Moved Councillor Bell, second Councillor Shepherd. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor McLaughlin. And third reading, if it pleases you, Councillor Toth, thank you, and Councillor Rowe. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Councillor McLaughlin opposed. Thank you. The bylaw passes third reading. All right, we then move on to page 49 and back with Mr. Nyhus. Please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have nothing more to add other than my report. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for your eloquent and brief comments. So, Council, you remember we gave 3 readings to this bylaw a couple of weeks back or thereabouts, so it's here for adoption. Any discussion? Yes, please.
I just wanted to confirm, on page 51, the amendment. It says, no owner or occupier of real property shall cause or permit, and replacing with no legal owner, tenant, or person or authorized owner to. I just wanted to see if occupier is applying to all, this one situation that we were dealing with, or if it's dealing with anybody on any property that could pose a hazard to somebody that is vacant or has noxious weeds growing on it, et cetera.
The occupier. Maybe can you say that again? I'm not sure.
Well, my concern was, you know, you don't create a bylaw for just one situation or one landowner. It has to apply generally to everyone, and the bylaw should be enforced fairly and equally to everyone in that situation. And so I just wanted to make sure that it reflects that, because to me, the wording seems to just say, doesn't imply that.
So you're understand the sentiment that bylaw should apply to the whole community, but you referenced somebody and noxious weeds. Sorry, but I'm not following. Well, there's various things that the health, fire, safety hazards, et cetera, could apply to a lot of properties. You know, we have properties that have been left vacant for rezoning or whatever for years, and the signs are still there for years. They also pose a safety hazard to people. They're not fenced, and so can we require those people to also fence their properties? I mean, this may come up more in the safety discussions for the community, but I mean, especially for, you know, women walking alone or walking their dogs, vacant properties that are derelict do pose a hazard, and so maybe it would be better to fence more properties. Okay, thank you for the comment. Councillor Shepherd?
Just to ask Councillor McLaughlin if you want to suggest another word, or are you thinking of another word rather than occupier?
Well, yeah, I think it has to imply for sure that it applies to all property owners.
I wouldn't want to claim to be a lawyer, but I would say occupier in English is anybody on the property. Temporarily
well, occupy, you know, crime doesn't always, if somebody's in a property and they want to mug somebody or something, are they an occupier? No, they're not authorized. So I guess in a sense, they don't have to actually set up a home there to say they're occupying.
That's true.
They can just be on a property lurking around or whatever. So that's, I guess that's my concern, is that that has to be clear. So I will assume then that it does mean that, if that is generally what is.
Okay.
So just, I think I'm a little confused at this point. So just for clarification, what you're saying, Diane, is you want to know whether this is for, this applies to all vacant properties. Is that what you're asking in this? Because I'm wondering, is that not what this reads? So it's, maybe we're a little confused. We need a little clarification.
Councillor Bell.
The bylaw, if I may, Your Worship.
Please.
The bylaw applies to the entire district uniformly. To address perhaps Councillor McLaughlin's concern, as bylaw staff become aware by means of a complaint of a situation where there is unauthorized access to a property, we would use this bylaw amendment to require the owner to secure that property from unauthorized access.
So you're saying if someone complains about it, that you will act on it, or you'll think about it?
Excuse me, Councillor McLaughlin. Please talk to me.
Oh, sorry. Like, to me, there's a distinction. If people complain about it, then you will act on it.
And I believe that's what our chief building officer just told us. They will act on it in accordance with the severity or the number of complaints would be a serious. So, thank you. Councillor Toth? Oh, I thought you had your finger. Okay. Councillor Bell, I see your microphone. Are you?
Oh, sorry.
Okay. All right. Is there any other comments, Councillor McLaughlin?
I just, having been an urban designer and planner, in terms of crime prevention and environmental design, you take preventative steps. You don't assume that there has to be a huge degree of potential harm before you take action on it. So hopefully this is something that we'll become more familiar with over time. But I do want bylaws, when people complain, to be enforced.
Councillor
And
McLaughlin.
this is, I know we only respond according to complaints, but I do think bylaws should be enforced, and if we're not really planning to enforce them, we shouldn't have them. Thank you.
Okay, I'll leave that. I think that's something we can talk about offline, because there's an inference in there that I'm not comfortable with, but that's not germane to the discussion we're having today. Council, we've got the bylaw before us for 3 readings. Are we there yet?
No, I will move that we proceed with adoption.
Oh, yes, thank you. Thank you so much. I did. Greece. It's a slippery slope. Okay, all in favor of adoption? Opposed? Councillor McLaughlin opposed. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Nyhus. We move then to item 10.1, rezoning application for 6401 Apple Orchard Road. And Mr. Kobowitz, do you have comments you would like to offer us?
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a presentation to provide further context on the application. I'll be presenting tonight a rezoning application for 6401 Apple Orchard Road. This application is located in the West Sechelt neighborhood at the intersection of Emerson Road and Apple Orchard Road in a fairly recently approved subdivision. The request from the applicant is to rezone the property from R2 Residential 2 Low Density to R4 Residential 4 Urban Infill. The difference in this zone is that it would allow for a 2-unit dwelling, also known as a duplex, or alternatively, for a single detached dwelling with a secondary suite, which would be a single family home with a basement suite, for example, as well as a detached accessory dwelling unit or laneway home. The location of the property is in a predominantly single family neighborhood. To the north is the agricultural land reserve, as well as where Emerson Road continues through into Tower Road. There's also a Cascade Crescent Park adjacent to the, in close proximity to the property there. You can see this is the property. It's currently undeveloped. This imagery is from this past summer, and it remains to be the last lot in this subdivision to be developed. The official community plan, more broadly throughout the district, as well as West Sechelt in particular, is designated as residential in this area. This designation does support site-specific infill in properties where it can be considered compatible with surrounding uses. West Sechelt is also located within the primary growth area for the district, which is signified by availability of services, including water and sewer services. The proposed R4 zone was introduced in Bylaw 580 and is intended for properties over 700 square meters with rear lane access. This is an illustration to show some of the differences between the existing R2 zone and the proposed R4 zone. Some of the differences to note is the lot coverage would increase from 35% to 45%, 35 being indicated by the orange and 45 by the red area. So there is a slight increase in overall lot coverage, and that's the coverage of the lot that can be occupied by buildings and structures. What is introduced in the R4 zone is a limit on the overall floor area of buildings, which is a floor area ratio of 0.6. So the difference is noted there approximately because the R2 zone doesn't have a floor area ratio. It turns into a function of permissible building height and lot coverage. So somebody could max out the lot coverage and the height and theoretically construct a maximum of 508 square meters. Whereas in the R4 zone, because there is a floor area ratio limit, that would be 435 square meters. There's no change in setbacks. There's no change in permissible height. Both zones have the same height permissions for single-family dwellings, duplexes, detached accessory dwelling units have a floor height, of 6.5 meters, which is also the same. Parking remains unchanged. Our current parking requirements for duplexes would be 2 spaces for each unit for a total of 4. And there would also have to be 1 parking space for each detached accessory dwelling unit. And all of those spaces would need to be located on the property. This illustrates the differences in the zones for the potential footprint of a building that could be constructed. So the area in yellow would be in the proposed R4 zone if someone was to elect one of the density options, which would include a single-family dwelling with a rear lane home. That would be the maximum footprint area that would be achievable within the 45% parcel coverage as well as the floor area limits that are in place. The blue area would be if somebody elected to construct a single-family dwelling within the R4 zone, and due to the limits of the floor area ratio, that would be the typical achievable floor area or lot coverage limit that you would see there. And finally, if somebody was to construct a duplex, a 2-unit dwelling, and pardon me, I've mislabeled those two. It's the blue area that is duplex and the red area that is the single detached dwelling under the current R2 zone. So the point of illustrating this is under the current R2 zone, the development potential of the property as far as building size and floor area is greater because there is no limit on floor area. And that's what this diagram is intended to illustrate as well, to illustrate the building envelope potential based on the height, floor area, setbacks, and lot coverage. So the red cube is the maximum potential building envelope within the current R2 zone, and the yellow and blue areas are the 2 options for a duplex or single family with a laneway home. The development for infill areas applies to development permit area number 8, and these are a specific set of guidelines with the objective of controlling the form and character of the development that is over and above the single family type of building that we don't have development controls for. So if somebody was electing to build a duplex, for example, they would have to apply for development permit area 8, and such an application would be presented to council at that time for approval. The same is for if somebody was wanting to do infill in the form of a cottage or laneway home. That would also at this time go to council for approval, for design approval. So some of the examples, as I've listed here, of guidelines that such a development would have to conform to is orienting the infill housing to minimize overlooking of adjacent residential properties, regulating building heights further than what might be found in the zone, things like ensuring that second stories are of a lesser floor area than first stories, landscape material design of the building is controlled through the development permit process. And this is not something that applies to standard single-family development. So next steps in this application would be further review by staff, provision of community amenity contributions in line with council's policy on CACs, as well as public notice with further bylaw readings. Should the bylaw proceed, eventual development permit for form and character, as I've noted, and then followed by a building permit. In this case, with recent amendments to the Local Government Act, allowing for the option for council to elect to not hold a public hearing in cases where an application is in conformance with the official community plan. That option has been presented to council. This option would still require public notification, similar process that we follow now for public hearings, which includes a sign on the property, newspaper notifications, as well as mail outs to all properties within 100 meters. And residents and the public could continue to submit comments to council throughout that process, or council can elect to follow the conventional process of considering first and second reading tonight and directing staff to hold a public hearing at a future date. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Kovaritz. Is there anything, I'm looking at Director Allen, is there anything you want to add at this point, Mr. Allen? No?
Thank you, Your Worship. Certainly at the discretion of council. To sum it up in the briefest of words, we do have a residential parcel zone for dwelling. Here's an option for consideration of other types of dwellings. Mr. Kobowitz has noted that there is this new provision in the Local Government Act. It's part of Premier Eby's plan to expedite and support housing. It's an interesting premise because we have always retained, delayed in turning on my camera. We've always retained the ability, the right, if you will, to waive a public hearing if it's complying with the official community plan. And that's been something that has been done through the middle towards the end of a process where a decision has been made, okay, we could move forward without a public hearing. The new legislation requires that decision now, at the beginning of the process, rather than 2/3 of the way through. So it's interesting. This is a test case for us, if you will. There's a couple of things I would like to just stress. Number one, that does not mean a decision is made tonight. What we're seeking for this evening is direction. And number two, that in no way prevents engagement from the community, from the neighbors throughout the process, as you've seen by the emails to date, and that there's no cutoff date for that. A public hearing itself is quite rigid, where there's a cutoff. Once public hearing's done, there's no more. That's it. It's done. So I think that's part of this evolution of the Local Government Act, is to move away from that rigidity and allow for a little bit more fluid communication. My sense is from over the years, watching communication evolve from letters that arrive and are responded to in a week, observation of letters to the editor and a response the following week, and now with email, opinions, input, suggestions can be exchanged on a daily, if not hourly basis. And it's just an evolution of the process rather than any circumvention of public engagement. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So what is before us tonight is strictly to give you our approval to proceed without a public hearing. Is that fair?
That is fair, yes. And part two would be to proceed with standard referrals
and rezoning review. Yes, thank you.
Right, but other than that, if we were to agree to proceed without a public hearing, because it is new territory, could council change our mind in 3 or 4 months on this application?
Good point. We don't have a specific precedent or comparable on that. Council can, of course, change resolution. It's unlikely that 3 or 4 months might be too much time. It's something that might be, perhaps next council meeting might be the appropriate time to consider that, as opposed to saying 3 or 4 months from now. But we will be reporting back to council in the future.
Right.
Yes, correct.
All right, thank you. Councillor Inkster, please. Oh, perhaps we could get a motion on the floor first in terms of the recommendation. Staff's recommendation is that the rezoning application proceed without a public hearing. So so we can make the for council, you can make a motion, second it, and then we have discussion.
Yeah, I certainly won't be moving that.
Okay?
Yeah.
Okay. You move it. Thank you. Is there a second? Yep. Yep. All right. Very good. Councillor Inkster, please.
So based on the information council's received and the numbers of emails received and the fact that there's been some information going throughout the neighborhood with some written material to the neighborhood, it was quite well written in terms of the concerns expressed by the neighborhood. I would prefer that we look at the very least at a public hearing for this piece of property based on the pictures provided aerially. The neighborhood is single family throughout, and as staff indicated, it may or may not be completely single family, but if council has went up there, as had been encouraged by the people in opposition, you'll notice that it's all single family. If we look at the precedent setting of adding density to this neighborhood and say that that will be it on that piece of property, we're not necessarily looking at the piece of ALR that was nearby. Council can argue that the ALR may not be developed, but Apple Orchard Road was ALR, and it was redeveloped as a subdivision with a single family, and now this change on the corner. So we could set a precedent in adding density in that neighborhood in the middle of single family, and there's a number of concerns expressed by the community that we shouldn't be considering that, as well as the fact that we could set a precedent for the ALR opening up on a thin road 100 yards away to create more density in an area that was originally single family. So those are my concerns. I would encourage a public hearing and or a rejection of this proposal as presented. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Other comments? Councillor McLaughlin.
I agree with Darren and
Councillor Inkster, please.
Councillor Inkster, sorry. And in terms of this particular lot, it's a corner lot. I mean, it looks like a large lot, but it does have large setbacks for a lot. It's on 2 sides of the road. And I think the neighbors that have bought into that subdivision have expected a certain type of house, a style, a design. And I think in most single-family neighborhoods, having a duplex added is not something that they generally see as a positive offering. And also, I am just leery that sometimes investors will buy properties, upzone them, and then want to flip them for profit. And so I basically think in this case, you know, if we want to do duplexes, look for another location, development with maybe townhouses or something, but this location I do not support for this particular proposal. And rezonings are optional, of course, when they're really appropriate. And of course, I don't feel that this is appropriate, and so I will not support this rezoning. But if it does go ahead, we definitely should have a public hearing so that we can keep hearing the public and keep respecting their views. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Toth and then Councillor Shepherd.
Thank you. Conversely, I actually support a duplex here. I support duplexes on every residential property in Sechelt. But that's not a conversation here. I do actually wholeheartedly agree at this point with this application going forward with a public hearing. This need to no longer have them by default. I don't think this is the right precedent for it, given the communications we have received from the neighborhood. So I support the application moving forward, but I do want the application to move forward with a public hearing. So if the motion on the floor is defeated, I'm happy to move option B. Thank you.
Councillor Shepherd, please.
I have to agree with Councillor Toth. I am in favor of duplexes. I have driven in the neighborhood and obviously acknowledge that it's all single-family homes. But, you know, we're under pressure here from the province to build alternative forms of housing. And I don't think that's restricted to the downtown area. But as Councillor Toth has mentioned, I'm in favor of option B too, and a public hearing on the matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Rowe.
Through the chair to Director Allen, a question. I think you said it, but I just want to be clear. As you stated, at the end of a public hearing, so ends the consultation with the community. Without a public hearing, can we hear from them all the way up to the final decision? At what point does it end in this Premier Eby's plan?
Thank you. And through the worship, pleased to answer that question. And that is correct. A public hearing is quite rigid when it ends. Noting, of course, we live in a small community and we see one another in various places. One can't help but sometimes talk, but you can receive no further information, no further delegation, be it from the public. And staff can report back on the nature of the public hearing and make recommendations, but we can't provide you with more technical resource material. So it's rigid and firm, and there's lots of test cases to prove that. And so we're extremely careful with how we move forward in that regard. This newer method is in fact different, and you could receive email correspondence, phone calls, have discussions, receive all kinds of information right through to the time of final decision. So that's one of the unique and different qualities of this proposal. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay. I think we need to be careful that we understand that a public hearing is not a process that results necessarily in a rejection. It is just a mechanism of getting the same information that perhaps we're getting by the emails that some of you, I think, have sent us, and we will continue to get them. I can assure the public that I certainly read. I won't speak for all the council, but I think I probably can, that we read everything we get. So I am more interested in making a good decision on what's good for the community. I have friends who live within, I don't know if they're within 100 meters, but they're certainly within 200 meters. And I observed that, Cascadia, the development across Emerson is very dense and very livable, I might add. I quite like that community. So I'm not sure that I agree with the concept of duplexes. We need to start accepting that we're going to have more density to be affordable, to be livable. Speaking as somebody who's certainly a senior, this is what we need in this community. So I think the issue of a public hearing versus getting emails and listening to the community I don't see that as a significant difference. So I think I'm overall in favor of item A or option A. Anybody else? Not? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a comment that, with some of the things that we've heard from now Premier Eby and some of the things that we know are important to the province and necessary from the province, those single-family homes on Apple Orchard Lane may have been the last single-family homes built in the district. And that's not by our choice necessarily. I'm okay with that, but things are changing, whether we accept it or not. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we have a We have a motion in front of us to proceed with the recommendation, which is to proceed without a public hearing. So any further discussion on that matter? This is not about option A or B particular, well, I guess it is about option A, essentially. So, you ready for the question? I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion fails. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for your, yes, is this? No, I think as a result, I think then we must go to a public hearing. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No, that's not right. 4 options there.
Thank you. Again. So what does council wish? A, B, C, or D?
I will move option B's recommendations that zoning amendment bylaw 580-1, 2022 be given first and second reading, and recommendation 2 that a public hearing be scheduled for zoning amendment bylaw 580-1, 2022.
Thank you. That's, are you all rushing to second that?
Sorry.
No, I need a second. Okay, thank you. Okay, Councillor Inkster. You're commenting or you're seconding and thirding?
Well, the previous motion was defeated.
Uh-huh.
I'm getting the impression that council would prefer, the ones that defeated it prefer that it goes to public hearing. As I indicated previously, that's at the very least something that I think the neighbors in the community in that area expect. So that's what I'll be supporting, is that we go to public hearing to listen to the neighbors with their concerns about that change. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McLaughlin.
I'm just wondering if we should go and ask about option D first, to reject the application, because, and the recommendation, because in that case, we won't need a public hearing. And, to say, you know, if we do go ahead with it, then I would want a public hearing. But I don't want to say, yes, we have a public hearing, everybody does that, and then they don't vote for C or D.
Okay. All right, so you have a motion in front of us, so if you feel the appropriate course of action is option D, you would vote against this, Councillor McLaughlin. Is that correct?
Well, I guess I have it the way it's laid out, yes.
Thank you. Okay. Any other comments? Are you ready for the question? This is, I believe, at the bottom of page 55, option B. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor McLaughlin's opposed. The motion carries. Okay, thank you, everyone. We move on to item 10.2. I'm mindful of our time and wondering, does council, you okay to keep going, or do you want 5 minutes? Okay. How about we adjourn to 8? Thank you.
Yes.
This is a tough crowd. I can't get away with anything. We're recessed until 8:55, and not an instant later.
I don't think.
Welcome back, everyone. We'll reconvene at 8:55 on the almost dot. I was reminded that as a consequence of the last motion, we do need to consider first and second reading of the bylaw number 580-1 as outlined on page 60. And if it suits council, this would be for 2 readings tonight. Councillor Toth moves first reading. Councillor Rowe seconds it. Any discussion on first reading? Seeing none, all in favor of first reading? Opposed? Councillor McLaughlin opposed. Did you vote, Councillor Inkster? Yes. We need to do, because we're saying public hearing, we've got to go to first reading and second reading. So your vote was in affirmative. Okay, and if it's your will, second reading, please. Motion, Councillor Toth, Councillor Shepherd. Any discussion? All in favor of second reading? Opposed? Councillor McLaughlin opposed. The motion carries. Okay, thank you, everyone. We'll move then to item 10.2, moving of the liquor primary license for the Legion. Council, how do you want to proceed? Go ahead.
I'm happy to move recommendation 1 that council, having considered the location, person capacity, and hours of liquor service, supports the Royal Canadian Legion branch number 140 liquor primary license relocation from 5591 Wharf Avenue to 5546 Inlet Avenue.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Is that a second? Councillor Inkster, thank you. Discussion. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Unanimous. Carried. Thank you. And thank you again, Mr. Kobowitz, for putting that together. Item 10.3, an amendment or modification, I guess, to the Visitors Information Center to extend the agreement for 90 days. Motion, if it so suits. Thank you, Councillor Toth. Councillor Inkster, any discussion? Okay, all in favor of extending? Motion carries. Thank you. You may.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a follow-on question here. So the point of extending this for 90 days was to allow time for a new agreement to be developed. I guess within the 90 days, this will be going out to tender, or it'll be advertised that we're considering. I'm just wondering what next steps are. Thank you.
Please, Deputy Corporate Officer Paulson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, that's correct. So the new contract has been drafted up, and we've been working with tourism to update some of those details that are 3 years old and just needed to be updated. But the next step will be for council to consider the renewal of that contract prior to the issuance of the RFP. And the request for proposal would have to go out for a minimum 30 days. And then, so the 90-day period just gives us time to get through December, Christmas break, and do all the procurement steps, which I'm sure Mr. Douglas can provide more details on if needed.
I think the point is 90 days you're confident it's enough. Okay, good, right? Okay. Then we move to we move to the fun stuff. All of you get to talk. Who would like to go first with councillor reports? I put Councillor McLaughlin on the spot last time, so you will not go first this time. Councillor Toth, thank you.
Thank you. I will keep it short. I think the only thing I have to report on is that I attended the APC meeting last night. It was interesting to see the TELUS Marina proposal finally coming forward, and to listen to the commissioner's comments to it. I haven't made it to one in person in some time, but I was glad to see, a couple of people there in the gallery last night. So, yeah, that's all I have to report. I guess that'll be coming to council eventually.
And you will, oh, yes, okay. 11.2, yes. Okay, I'll randomize it. Who would like to go next? Councillor Bell, please.
So I attended the presentation that was organized by Transportation Choices Sunshine Coast, which is TRAC, called Connect the Coast. It's a project that was initiated by TRAC to encourage the creation of all ages and abilities cycling and pedestrian infrastructure to connect the Sunshine Coast communities. They've done a design report, and the idea is from having cycling paths, more safe paths, infrastructure from Highway 101 from Langdale to West Sechelt. There's been a tremendous amount of work done by TRAC. I just want to, I'd like to acknowledge this, and it's certainly a very exciting initiative, and I know that we'll be hearing more about this. I attended the Seniors Planning Table along with some of the other team. The Seniors Planning Table, it's an incredible group of members that's part of the Sunshine Coast Resource Center, and they work on identifying needs and gaps and building partnerships and connecting existing services to inform needed programs. And certainly their area of real concern is to mitigate isolation of older adults and to encourage healthy aging. I really want to encourage everyone that's listening and part of the group here to check out their website. They do incredible work, the Sunshine Coast Resource Center. And finally, we attended a very interesting event last night with the Sunshine Coast Community Services. And it was a new approach, really, to looking at a very innovative, actually, and diversifying way of looking at food security. And it was really around, the premise was end poverty, eliminate food insecurity. And they have a number of initiatives that they've done and tracked, and they have valid data that shows that this kind of concept and thinking is working. So it's going to be great to hear more about that initiative and more of the work that the Sunshine Coast Community Services. And finally, I just want to say that I wish them the very best. They're underway with a capital campaign. They're very close to building this amazing site on their new building on their new site of community services, and it'll be affordable housing for women fleeing domestic violence, and there'll be a lot of opportunity there for food security, et cetera. So I encourage the community to really check that out and support them as much as they can. I think it'll be game changing for this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Looking for volunteers.
Councillor Shepherd says it's my turn. Just to tag team on to Councillor Bell's report about last night, the three of us decided to split reports up so that we all didn't talk about the same thing. So I'm just going to add, because Community Services is going to be doing a series of events that shows the public how they're going to use their new building. And so as they enter this last bit of campaign where they need to raise their $3 million or whatever the gap is, that's sort of the intent. So last night they were showing, what it's going to look like and how it's going to serve the population with regards to food security. And so the next topic will be something different, but it will all relate to how they're going to use their new building. So I really encourage everybody to watch for those events. It's really makes it real. Like, you can really see the impact that it's going to have on the community. The other event that the three of us were at was the Housing Action Table last week. I think it was last week, where they laid out their plan for the coming year. It's such a great table. It's so good to see everybody around the table and working on projects together and building those synergies that are needed as we try and advance housing in our community. And I just want to acknowledge and thank staff, not only from the District of Sechelt, but also the SCRD and the Town of Gibsons and the Sechelt Nation for engaging with that table since its inception, and working on the framework that came out of the housing needs assessment. I really personally, as a citizen of Sechelt, appreciate that staff are engaging with that public body. And then I'm not sure if the mayor is going to talk about the community. Me? So the mayor and I have had a couple meetings with regards to the Community Safety Task Force, getting it up and running. Councillor Bell and myself have met with community services. The mayor has had some meetings with other small groups, and we came together with a slightly larger but still small group this afternoon to start to sort of lay out the framework of what that committee looks like and some measurable goals, et cetera. So I think it was a great meeting this afternoon. It is going to be tough to keep it within our realm of control, but we can do it. And hopefully, we haven't set any dates or anything, but we're going to continue to build on this before Christmas and have another meeting with a slightly larger group again. And then we'll break for Christmas and get to work in January with the goal of having recommendations to council for the end of January. And if you have anything else to add to that, feel free. You have my permission. And that's it. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. You ready? Hold on. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought Councillor
I'm looking
Shepherd
at
was
you.
telling who was, oh, okay. Who was next? There's a fairly busy calendar for us, and as time goes forward, it'll be interesting if I can take time away from work to get to some of these meetings. But I'm lucky that Saturday I have as a sports day for reffing and kids involved in sports. So because of that, I was able to go to the Festival of Lights and the Rockwood event, and it was, I missed a couple. So I'm not sure, maybe council members who were there can say how big it was last year, but I can't believe how long the parade was. I told some people that wanted to go with me that it wasn't as long as Canada Day. I'm not sure anymore. But it was a great event, and I heard that you went through twice. I
couldn't find my way out.
You couldn't find your way. You were having so much fun. So, and the Rockwood was well attended, and those both events, Rockwood started a number of years ago. Festival of Lights, the festival, the parade started in 2011. It's become so large. I'm hoping that you were able to recognize and/or thank the organizers or organizer. I heard it was one individual, and that if you didn't, that we as a council do on a regular basis, because the event is so good, the parade is so long, and the event is so well received by probably over 1,000 people now. So I hope you were able to do that, or we can recognize them as well.
Well, I think certainly on behalf of council, we, to answer that question, letters of appreciation are going out.
Good.
But no, I think publicly it was another great show, and I'll leave it at that for now.
I was going to say I sent a quick shout out on our behalf to Teresa, because she really picked the ball up on that and did a great job for the parade. So she really appreciated it.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks. Now I'm going to look over to this side. Councillor McLaughlin, do you want to go next or last?
I can go. I also attended last night the Sunshine Coast Community Services event on food security, and it was a lot of information. I didn't realize they were doing so many wonderful things, helping so many people in need of food, the homeless people, but also people that just didn't have enough money to actually afford healthy food. It's like 4 times as many people that really just can't afford healthy food. So it is a big issue in our community. And I talked to some people that were from my community, and we were thinking about getting some funds to pay for some community building and our own food security events, just to help build food security in our own village area. and support maybe some new businesses and how we can all just start growing what we can and sharing and helping out. And also as a basis for neighborhood-based future design and for emergency and climate resilience and planning. On Friday, November 25th, I went on World Planning Day. There was an event in Victoria regarding, with the Planning Institute of British Columbia, regarding climate resiliency and sustainability, which is, I just love that topic. So, but again, it was quite a frightening story about limits of growth are not acknowledged, and that we need to avoid the long-term depletion of natural resources and address structural poverty, climate change, biodiversity loss, which is in the news lately, and ocean acidification. These are all feedback loops that show that climate change is happening and it's very destructive for us. There's evidence that green growth is not feasible. The solution is a steady state. This is according to the keynote speaker, and to appreciate that we have to thrive instead of grow. So it's a different idea about growth and sustainability than maybe we've had in the past. Atmospheric rivers and heat domes are feedback loops. There's polarization in politics. We need to restore faith in government and start taking care of things. Or, as he said at the end, nature will do it for us, and it will blast us back to the Stone Age. So, serious talk. This fellow was a physicist that became an urban planner, and he works in North Cowichan as a planning manager. So, it was interesting to see. I always find there's innovative people in Victoria, and it's great to hear their thinking. It's inspiring, so, but frightening at the same time. So that's what I've been doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Shepherd.
I attended my first meeting with the Downtown Business Chamber of Commerce. We spent a while talking about the impact of short-term rental, the new bylaw. They obviously have concerns about the impact on local businesses. And I've promised to follow up on several of their inquiries on enforcement. Attended another library board meeting. Everything's on track financially, coming in at the end of the year. They do have some concerns over the envelope of the building that requires further study, so that's ongoing. I attended the Davis Bay, Selma Park Community Association AGM, fantastic round table exercise in determining what's unique about that area, what are the vulnerabilities, discussion on what their capital request is in terms of the upcoming budget. So that was a great evening. And I do have a question over something, perhaps I could direct it to Mr. Dillon, in terms of the Sewer Commission, if there is a meeting planned or being organized.
Thank you for the question, through your worship. We did convene 2 meetings in the past year. The issue has been coordination with the Seychelles Nation government. We have made several attempts to book amenable meeting times with them, and unfortunately that has not occurred. So I left the ball in their court to determine or present to us a time that works for them, and we will try and work around their schedule. And I have yet to hear back from the First Nation representatives. And
so, Mr. Dillon, I think the point is it won't happen in your busy schedule before Christmas. So you're okay.
That is correct.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then finally, just one last, we had a quick meeting with several of the directors of SCREDO, the Economic Development Agency, today. Really very helpful. I'm just trying to learn what their program is, how they're set up, and really encourage them to come before council so that their operations are more transparent to everyone. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I guess it's been a busy 3 weeks. I think it's been since we last gathered in this forum. Correct me? Oh, good. Just to add to the Community Safety Task Force meeting today was held at the meeting room at the Water Resource Center. So it's a wonderful venue that has some potential for use in the future. Big shout out to Pile On with Teresa and Scarlett and several others that were involved in organizing the parade. I think Councillor Inkster was as big as it's ever been for the Christmas one. I think because the Coasters Car Club is in the summer parade, they tend to make it bigger. The summer is still bigger, but the Christmas one can try harder. I realize we didn't pick up on something during a review of some of the minutes, but just for the public's awareness, staff are working on the short-term rental implementation and are encouraging people who have, in particular, I think it's fair to say, the stage 3 or type 3 short-term rentals to be ready to submit their details very early in January. And we will be doing what we can to expedite that process to bring it back to this table for Council's decision, in particular on type 3. And Councillor Rowe has something she's forgotten.
No, I thought I deleted myself, but I didn't. Sorry.
Whoa, I want that power. And that's, I think, other than it's been a very busy couple of weeks at the regional district, and that's a good segue into my counterpart, Councillor Toth, to report on the SCRD.
Thank you. Today was the third day of pre-budget meetings, but we only took a day and a half, so we got today off. And I was chairing those pre-budget meetings.
I was going to deliver that punchline, but yes, Councillor Toth, I want to acknowledge you did a great job of chairing a highly complex process. And instead of the 3 days that were reserved of 6 hours a day, we finished before lunch yesterday. So thank you for that.
And it's one of those things that there's always 3 days scheduled because you never know how in the weeds you could get or where things might go off the rails. So the new directors had some great questions and the returning directors had some great questions, but we got through it. So this Friday, there's a special committee of the whole meeting to consider the parcel taxes and user rates of the various utilities, which includes regional water. If you're able to attend, I would recommend coming out. There are some fairly substantial increases being proposed, both in water as well as the rural wastewater services. My understanding, just to follow up on the water thing, is that staff will be, the SCRD staff will be putting together a workshop for all the elected officials on the coast so that they can be brought up to speed on where we are with the water projects, timelines, things of that nature, get some questions answered, because it is something that they're hearing, from both councils, and get their questions answered. Hopefully, starting in January, I'll be switching back to the written reports like I used to produce for the previous council. I'm not a big fan of on-the-fly verbal reporting, and it gives me a better opportunity to review the things that have happened in the meetings, but hopefully that'll be in January. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Toth. Councillor Inkster? Yes?
Thank you. I just wanted to ask through you to Councillor Toth, who was giving the report on the regional district and so may be able to answer the question. Is there quite a substantive and robust discussion on the water issue, considering a decision that was made a couple of weeks ago, and the budgeting connecting to things like, if we look at external water sources for the arena, is there a plan in place to help that out? Because obviously the argument was that it's going to come in from a pipe, and then there was concern in the community over that. So are we looking at plans and or budget items that would help community members help the arena? Thanks.
There, in the pre-budget process, there was one proposal for $10,000 to be provided for engineering work for anything that needs to be done to get the ice plant to run on alternate water sources. Other opportunities like perhaps even the groundwater well that's on the site, are still to be discussed and contemplated, yeah.
There was a press release put out today where they reaffirmed that as well. So it's work in progress to figure out how to bring the water. I think I said this the last time, but a shout out to members of the community who have offered to provide the equipment, the trucks and the tanks to deliver non-potable water for free. So the good news in a perverse sort of way is that there's been enough rain that we have lots of water going over into the ocean. So what we're taking in the short term for the arena would otherwise be going to the ocean. That is not something we can count on. We're still at stage 4, and the report referenced that would likely to be there for some time. Okay. If there's nothing else, I will entertain a motion. Oh, would we like to ask, are there any emergency items? Oh, right. What I meant to say is, oh, yes. What would you like to do with the correspondence, Councillor Inkster?
Well, it's a call for action.
Mm-hmm.
So, microphone? Yeah.
Microphone, but...
Okay. Could introduce some items from the chamber that's a call for action. So how would council like to proceed with the information presented, for receipt or for action?
So, and I think to preempt some of this, I understand they do intend to come. Mr. Farah, who was going to be here, was ill this week, so asked to postpone it. So I think we can accept this letter.
Table it?
Receive it and await further input from the various groups. And by the way, it is 4 groups that have submitted this. So, Councillor Rowe.
To your worship, there's quite a few items in here that actually would fit under the task force category. And being that we're looking at recommendations by the end of January and they're not coming until January, maybe forwarding this correspondence to the task force, at least in the related, community safety related topics.
Sure.
Can I make that motion?
Yes, and you'll second that motion?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor of passing those parts related to safety to the Community Safety Task Force? Carried. Thank you. And we'll move receipt of this. That's what we need? Okay. Motion seconded. All in favor of receipt? Thank you. Motion to adjourn. Seconded. All in favor? We are adjourned. And we will wait a second for confirmation that we're